At 8 minutes to 8, well, the Henley Royal Regatta starts next week, and in the build-up, a debate has broken out over the quality of the water in the Thames at Henley. Earlier this week, Thames Water revealed the results of some water tests it's made at 2 locations nearby, and says that since early May, it does meet the Environment Agency's threshold for good bathing water quality. But now, though, the campaigning group River Action has cast doubt on the water safety with some tests of its own. It says that just under half of their tests showed that E. coli was at levels that would be deemed unsafe for swimming at Fawley Meadows. Well, our reporter James Ingham spoke to Dave Wallace from River Action about what the group has found so far.
So what we're seeing as a general rule is very high levels of E. coli, above the standards that the Environment Agency has set for sufficiency in terms of recreational use. So overall, our results show very poor quality.
And so therefore getting in the water, perhaps ingesting any of that water, could potentially be harmful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the higher the readings, the greater the chances. So again, you can see lots of rowers on the water, and because of the work that we've been doing, they now have hygiene policies in place, which make sure that they're covering scratches, washing themselves, washing the boats. So there's a lot the rowers are actually having to do just to protect themselves.
So in terms of, there's a discrepancy between the data. You're suggesting that there are high levels of E. coli here. Thames Water says that they're not. And is that to do with, do you think, where it's being taken and the different sampling methods you're using?
I think it's a lot to do with where the samples have been taken. So they are taking samples quite far upstream at Marsh Lock and quite far downstream at Hambledon Lock. And what we're seeing in terms of our sampling is that we are on the river course next to some streams where we know, because we've actually had a map from Thames Water showing it, that the outflow of the Henley sewage treatment works is coming into the river. So
you believe their data, but perhaps you'd suggest they're taking their samples in a place that's not particularly useful for recreational river use? I think
they're obviously doing sampling through an accredited lab. I absolutely think that they should be here sampling. I think, it'd actually be fantastic if they did come and they could compare our results to their results. Because the other thing is we're using almost real-time test kits. So we're getting results in hours compared to them, where they'll take a sample, it will be couried off to a lab, a few days later they'll get the results. And I think actually what we're doing is much more modern in terms of the approach.
That's our reporter James Ingham speaking there to Dave Wallace from River Action. To help us better understand water testing and water safety, James also spoke to Dr. Andrew C. Singer from the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology.
There are no ways for us to currently address this problem for this bathing water season, but we need to think about and address it for the next one, because it's a big problem, as we can see. The data that River Action collected is probably accurate, and the data that Thames Water collected is also probably accurate. And sampling the same stretch of river but not at the same time means that you can generate 2 different data sets that don't agree with each other, because the river, by its very nature, is a moving object, and so you're not going to be sampling the same thing twice, and that's why we have this problem.
Would you say then that we can trust both sides, and we therefore, we can trust both sides, but we need more information?
Yeah, I don't see why you shouldn't trust both sides. Superficially, they are measures of what's happening in the river at a particular time using a particular method. We need to understand that both methods will generate slightly different data. And so if the River Action data was a little bit higher than Thames Water, is it higher because it's biased, or is it higher because it's more sensitive? And so that we need to get on top of that.
So, and just in terms of E. coli then, and these levels that we're seeing, there are times when the river appears to be okay, and there are times when it appears to be sort of bad. And so in terms of the Henley Regatta, how much of it should this be a concern for those people who are going to be on the water?
Good question. If it rains, it's probably going to be of concern, I would imagine. What we saw in the data is the higher E. coli counts track rainfall, more or less. And so if it's a wet regatta, expect that more E. coli is going to be in your river.
Interesting stuff. That's Dr. Andrew C. Singer from the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, speaking there to our reporter James Ingham. While a Thames Water representative said that 2 sites on the river had been consistently achieving E. coli levels the Environment Agency would deem as good for bathing waters. They added River Action should take the same transparent approach and publish all their results for the days they tested, instead of only sharing selective days that support their chosen narrative.